This lesson is about what I refer to as atypical defensive moves. So these are, for lack of a better term, kind of dirty moves that don't neatly fall into the category of upper body strikes or kicks. So why is it important to learn these? Because there's no rules if somebody attacks you, and whatever you can use to your advantage is going to be the thing that might get you out of that situation. So I'm going to go through some of these. We had a previous video about vulnerable targets, and anytime that you're doing any kind of strike, whether it's one of these atypical strikes or later on when we learn some more formal strikes and kicks, we always want to target something that's vulnerable. So I don't want to be hitting something that's going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt him, or that's not going to have much effect on him. So I'm just going to go through some of these with Bob. So the first is very simple, and not everybody would want to do this one. It just kind of depends on the kind of person you are and how thick your skull is. So in Scotland it's called a Glasgow kiss, but basically it's a headbutt. So when I'm headbutting, I want to be using this part of my head, okay? Not anything down here. I'm going to hurt myself, but this is kind of the tough part of my head right here. So if you can see, kind of about halfway up from my brows to my hairline on back to right about there. That's the area I'm going to use. So generally speaking, I can headbutt just from a stationary position like this. I could be standing in front of somebody, headbutt him. If I can grab onto something, that's going to magnify it. So I could grab onto a coat, boom. I could do a plumb clinch and then bring him into it. That's going to magnify it. But what's my target? If I'm standing in front of him, my target's going to be his nose. Okay, it's going to hurt a lot. It's going to smash that nose, and it's going to stun him. You can do multiple headbutts, but if I just hit head on head here, I'm liable to knock myself silly. So what I want to do, this is hard, this is fairly soft, I want to target that nose. Okay. If I'm to the side, I want to target the temple, boom, right there. That's a knockout blow. So again, I can be standing here, look, I don't want any trouble, and then just throw my head into it. Or I can grab onto him, and I'm going to be headbutting there. Something that's similar to a headbutt, but is a little less traumatic to your noggin, is a shoulder butt. So with a shoulder butt, I pretty much, I can do a shoulder butt like this, but what I really need to do is I need to pull this guy into my shoulder. So I'm going to roll my shoulder forward as I pull him in, and what I'm doing is, it's very much like a headbutt, except he's going to the side and I'm extending that shoulder like this. Okay, it's a pretty devastating strike. So if I have his head, I can do it multiple times. And you could cause somebody a great deal of damage, knock them silly, give you a chance to get out of there without doing anything further. These are both pretty devastating. Going down my list, arm shivers. So an arm shiver is not a punch, it's just basically, I'm here, again, this is my defensive stance, this guy has gotten too close. So my arm shiver, I'm going to come across and it looks like this, like I'm turning a glass over. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm hitting with the side of the inside bone there, boom. I'm going for his neck or maybe the temple, boom, boom, okay. And I'm kind of turning into it at the same time. So I'm here, look, I don't want any trouble. And this isn't a devastating blow, but it could kind of knock somebody off their game a little bit. You could follow up with something else. So an arm shiver is just coming across, boom. Or if he's got a hold of me, I can, and I don't have much room, I can, and I can either hit with this or I can go all the way and hit with my bicep. But again, there's a whole complex of nerves in the side of the neck, and that's what I'm targeting there, like that. So it's very close in that I would use that. Okay, grabbing and twisting. Bob's not really good for demonstrating this because he's pretty stiff, but anything that you can grab and twist. Ears, twisting. This is only about waist high, but I could go to the groin, grab, twist. If he's got some extra fat on the side, grabbing that, twisting that. Anything hair, you can grab hair. If he's got hair, grab that, twist that. It's a way of controlling somebody. It's a way of shocking them. Any kind of grabbing and twisting. Eye gouges. A lot of ways to affect the eyes. In a real serious situation, if you've got your hands free, grabbing the side of his head and digging the thumbs in, kind of digging and scooping. Okay, that would be life and death situation. Another thing is just an eye jab. Boom. Take my fingers. I'm not going to take any one finger. I'm going to hurt my fingers, but take my whole hand and just jab it into the eyes like that. There's something called an eye rake, where I take those same fingers and rake across like that. Okay, so any kind of effect to the eye, jabbing to the eye, gouging is that's a primary target. The eye whip is it's a quick way of affecting the eyes, and what it is I throw my hand out and I let it loose and I let the fingertips whip out. It looks kind of silly doing it, but it's just, I'm usually going to be using my front hand like that. So it's a whip, whip, whip. Just let my hand kind of go loose, and it really flicks the eyes and hurts. Think about taking your finger and just going funk on your eyes. Okay? Okay, eye whip. Ear slap. Okay, this is, let's say he's got a hold of me here. Both of his hands are occupied. So I'm just going to get my hands here and I'm going to, I can do it once, I can do it multiple times, but I'm cupping my hands a little bit and slapping the ears. There is an early form of MMA called pancrase, and they had some weird rules, and one of the rules was you could punch to the body, but you could only slap to the head. And there was at least one instance of somebody getting their eardrum blown out by that happening. You hit like this. So ear slap is pretty devastating. You can just cup your hands and just gently, you can kind of get a feel for what that would be like. You can do one side, boom, do the other side, boom, or you can do both. Okay? So that's the old ear slap. Ear rip, well, we talked about grabbing and twisting, but ears are pretty much cartilage. Pretty gross to think about, but they're pretty easy to rip. So you rip somebody's ear, unless they are so drunk they're not feeling pain, or so high they're not feeling any pain. That's probably going to stop what they're doing. Okay. You can't see the groin, but think about bowling. When you take a ball and you come like this. So slapping, we were just slapping the ears. We're going to slap the groin too, and we're going to do it like we're throwing a bowling ball. So I could start with an eye jab to distract him, and then I'm coming up, and I'm coming up kind of between his legs, like that. So, and I'm moving forward as I do that. As I'm doing that, boom, I'm moving forward. Okay? So that's the groin slap. Fish hooking. I really can't show you this with Bob, so I'll show you it with me, Bob and me. But I would be reaching around like this, or maybe I'm to the side reaching around, I'm grabbing here, and what I'm doing is I'm getting my fingers inside and I'm pulling. Now he can't bite me because I'm pulling out this way, so it's like this, and what it does is it turns his head, because if he doesn't turn his head, his cheek's going to rip out. So turns his head away from me, and that gives me the opportunity to come in with a forearm or with an elbow, and he's pretty vulnerable because he can't see what I'm doing, and his head's twisted away. So fish hooking, I reach around, I hook inside the lips, and I'm pulling. Okay? Make sure I'm getting all of these here. Jugular notch. So this is mostly 100%er. There's a few people that aren't real sensitive to it, but there's a little notch right there underneath your Adam's apple, and if you stick a finger in there, it kind of gets a gag reflex going. So you can just jab it like that, but the best thing to do is grab the back of the head, jab in, and kind of dig in and dig down. You can kind of feel the sternum there. You want to imagine kind of sinking your fingers behind the sternum. So like that, it'll get the guy gagging. This is a real good one if you're on your back and somebody's over you, they're on top of you, and you get a hand free, you can jam them there, and it's going to make them just involuntarily go back. So good little place to target there. Finger snapping and finger splitting, which I really can't do with Bob. Bob doesn't have any hands, but basically finger snapping would be grabbing a finger or two fingers and just cranking them. So somebody grabs onto me, I could grab a finger and just crank it back. He's going to let go. If he doesn't, it breaks. I had this done to me once. It wasn't purposeful, but doing some ground fighting with a guy who was not real experienced, and this was actually in a dojo, and I got him in a choke, and he couldn't get out, and so what he needed to do was tap and say he was done, but instead he panicked. He reached up, he grabbed my finger, and he did that, and didn't break the finger, but it broke my hand. So it works, and it'll get somebody off of you. Finger splitting is basically grabbing the hand like this, and I'd be grabbing on both sides and splitting those fingers like this, like a wishbone. Okay, that's pretty gruesome. So you can, if you can get grab like this so that you're holding them like this. So I would be over here holding that finger like that, or just like this, but pull it backwards and split at the same time. That'll get somebody to get off of you. That'll get somebody to comply with you, leave you alone. Especially for women, that's a really good one for women. Okay, good old-fashioned slap. Slaps are underestimated. There's a way of making your slap powerful. Now, one thing you don't want to do is come all the way back here. There's actually slapping contests. You can see them on YouTube. They're pretty weird. And these guys, they sit across from each other, and then they come back like this and slap. Now, obviously, that's going to generate a lot of power, but you can see it coming from a mile away. So what we want to do instead to generate power with our slaps is use our upper body and twist our hips and our upper body. So I've got my hands here. I said, look, I don't want any trouble. Okay, so I'm just coming in, bam, like that. I'm using that upper body twist. I don't have to come out here. And a good slap can knock somebody out. If not, it'll knock them goofy. So here, look, I don't want any trouble. I could even start with a little eye jab. Okay, and just slap as hard as you can. Again, just I'm using that body rotation to power that. Another one is biting. Last resort because of bloodborne pathogens that are out there. But if you have a choice between getting raped or getting killed and biting somebody, I'd take a chance on biting them. And that could be anything. It could be anywhere on the face, on the neck, ears. Do a Mike Tyson on the ears, bite the nose. Anywhere on the body. So if somebody's on top of you, you know, if you can crunch down on them. in the manual there's a story, true story from somebody that I knew at Poverello House, that he got attacked, unprovoked attack, and he thought he was going to die, and he stopped the attack by biting down on a guy's finger. So fingers are fair game too. Anywhere that you can bite, it's very primal, and people react to it. So there's one more thing that we're going to look at, and I'm just going to do a quick version of it, but it's called a carotid restraint. And what it does is, it's not a choke where I've got my forearm across his neck like that. That's going to crush the trachea, and it won't necessarily put him out, but it will make him panic, and that's not what you want. If you can get to somebody's back, what you want to do is slide your hand around, get your elbow under the chin. And a real simple way of doing this is just clasping your hands together, putting your head down, and then just squeezing. Think of it like a nutcracker. Here's the nut, here's the walnut, his neck's the walnut, okay? So we're just bringing this around, coming up like that, and squeezing. If the guy's too tall, what you want to do is you want to kick his knees out and bring him back as you slide that in. Clasp those hands together, put your head in close, and just squeeze. Okay, that's a very simple version of a carotid restraint. A couple things about carotid restraints: they're generally safe, but there have been situations, especially law enforcement using them, where people have died, and it's either a result of poor training of the officer that's doing it, or the person that is being restrained is his health is compromised in some manner, and that's usually what causes him to die more than the carotid restraint. It's not something to play with, but you can practice on somebody, but just don't squeeze it too hard. If you can find a bob somewhere, you can practice squeezing hard. So you want to slip that around. The reason you keep your hand flat is so he can't grab it very easily, and if his chin's down, you can kind of lift it up. Now if his chin's down and he's got it tucked in so you can't squeeze it, one thing that you can do is kind of bulldogging it by just shaking like that until you get under that chin. Another thing that you can do is take this hand and come back like that, and then reset it. Boom. So that's a very simple carotid restraint. So those are some of the kind of atypical defensive moves, and it would be good to just kind of rehearse those as much as you can. And just remember, if you're ever attacked, don't worry about rules, just worry about doing whatever you need to do to survive.